All right, we got a quorum. But hold on a minute. You started recording? Okay. All right. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. It's the March 23rd meeting of the BRSU board. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm just checking to make sure I've got everybody in here that is already present. So I'm going to start with public comment. Anybody here from the public? I don't see anybody online or in our space, so we'll move on. I'm going to ask board members to just take a moment to review the norms on packet page 2. Just review them briefly for yourself. Okay. So we're going to move on to board organization. The first order of business here is to elect a chair of the BRSU board, and I'll take nominations now. Mr. Dale.
Mr. Salzgiver.
Okay, Dick Dale is nominating Jim Salzgiver. Any other nominations?
I'll second.
You don't have to.
Oh, okay.
It's an organization.
Okay,
We learned that the other day.
so hearing none, no more nominations. We'll take one more crack at it.
Feel free.
All right, so all in favor of Jim Salzgiver serving as BRSU chair, please say aye.
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 Okay, and any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Salzgiver, congratulations. The meeting's yours to continue.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're just missing 2 board members now, right?
Lindsay
And David. David should be here any minute. It's about his time.
usually,
He's going to go online.
but it's usually a few minutes
late. Okay, great. So the next item is to elect a vice chair. And I'll remind folks that in the past year, Julie was acting as our vice chair. Dick.
I nominate Julie Mott.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? And we, these things are not set in stone for me, anybody, but, so people should be thinking about, so it's somewhere down the road. It's good to have a little bit of passing around, but Julie's been an exemplary vice chair. So without any further nominations, all in favor of Julie Mock as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? There's Mr. Chandler. Okay, so Julie Mock will be our vice chair. And the next item is to elect a clerk. To remind you all that the acting clerk for this year has been Mr. Dale.
I nominate Dick Dale.
Okay, any further nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Richard Dale as clerk, please say aye.
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 Any-
Aye.
Okay, I think that was everybody, but any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous again.
Okay,
Great.
Julie, go.
Thank you. We got a team. Okay,
Flip
next.
through the next one.
Yep.
Next item, authorize the chair to sign previously approved contracts.
So moved.
Oh, Dean got it.
Okay, Dean got it,
I'll
and
second
Julie second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Item E, authorize the superintendent to sign previously approved contracts. Julie moves,
Second.
Dick seconds. No discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now we need to designate newspapers for notices, being the BRSU. We have Rutland Herald and Bennington Banner, both dailies.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Dick moves, Julie seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? It was a little quieter here. We're losing you guys.
Falling asleep.
It's not the exciting part of of things, but okay, so no opposed, any abstentions? And that's passes unanimously. Designate posting locations with the suggestion of town offices and
So
schools.
moved.
Julie moves,
Second.
Dick
Dean.
Dean seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that's unanimous. Next is to appoint evaluation committee members just to remind everybody. The evaluation committee has a job of, actually has a couple of jobs, and we're gonna do something on that tonight. It is leading the superintendent evaluation process, but it also has to do with negotiating the contracts with the superintendent. So for the past while, the evaluation committee members have been Julie Mock, Julie, Dean, and Jim.
I move all three.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Dean. Any discussion? We can, if somebody else wanted to consider being a part of it, they could.
David's hand is up.
Oh, David, your hand's
For a
up.
reason. I think he's just having taken it down.
Sorry about that. I never took it down from before.
Nope, it's too late. You're on the committee now. Sorry.
If somebody would, it's worked out pretty well, but if anybody else is interested, feel free to raise your hand.
I think just a point of information is that how we've operated is having a representative from each board.
Yep.
So I think that that's an important practice so that each board has input.
I agree.
So Dean's sort of stuck on it, being the only.
Haha, Dean. Who's laughing now?
Okay.
There are worse places to be stuck.
So if there's no further discussion, then the motion is to appoint Julie, Dean, and Jim as evaluation committee members. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay. Next one, appoint Sue Wilborn as BRSU treasurer for fiscal year 27.
So moved.
Julie moves. Second
Second.
from
Second.
Dean. All right. Any discussion? I assume you're willing to take the position?
I suppose so.
That's why she laughed when she doesn't.
Okay. All right, all in favor of Sue Wilborn as BRSU treasurer for fiscal 27, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. The proposed board meeting dates, it's in your package. On packet page 3, now's a good time to raise any questions on any of those dates.
Can I assume, because I didn't look up each one, that there are no religious holidays
They all look, I
on
took a
the-
look and they all look pretty clear.
and conflicting other board meetings
No,
within the district?
I don't think so.
I didn't see any.
Yeah, there are no overlap as they are right now.
Okay, so we have a motion for these dates as the proposed board meeting dates for BRSU in the coming year.
I'll move.
Julie moves.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Kelsey,
Okay, Kelsey second.
Julie
Get some
moved it.
people on the board.
Julie moved, Kelsey second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Okay. Item K, shall the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union be authorized by representatives of its member school districts to accept and administer financial grants?
So moved.
Julie moves,
Second.
second from Dick. Just to kind of quick, that's, basically, the BRSU typically does act in that capacity on grants.
Correct.
And which actually does a double duty for us of, so with their administration fees, we get to keep those,
That's right.
which is sort of a nice thing.
Supports our budget.
All right, so wait, did we get a,
We got a motion and a second.
good, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. We're almost there, guys. Okay, L. Shall the superintendent of schools be granted the authority to execute contracts and financial orders on behalf of the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union?
So moved.
Dick moves,
I'll second.
Julie seconds. Any discussion or questions on that? That's our normal operating procedure. Has been, we've, got good checks and balances in the system. It works well. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Item M, shall the school board of the participating school districts comprising the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union duly authorize the superintendent of schools to accept and administer IDEA B grants?
So moved.
Moved by Julie,
Second.
seconded by Dick. So anybody have questions on IDEA B grants or anything?
It's the federal special ed grant for those of you who are not sure.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Now we're on to consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Good, Julie moves, the second. If no one
Because
else,
negotiations have not been concluded, I assume that's pending successful negotiations.
I think it's just to offer them the positions
Yes.
regardless of the actual contract
Okay.
terms.
Yeah, we have to still give them letters of intent, so. These are the contract renewals.
Okay.
Yeah.
and these are all of the BRSU employees, which again, we, have the interesting approach of, we have a lot of employees at the BRSU because wherever we share people, that's the way to do it.
Less so this year.
That's true. We
we're
sent some back.
Taking advantage of the reorg to sort of straighten those positions out where we can.
Okay, we still have some transferring in as well.
Yeah, there's a couple, yep.
Yep. Okay, so that's included. So, if there's no objection to the consent agenda being taken as a whole, then I'll take, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, now we got the bargaining council update. As an FYI, the bargaining council, I think last year I said, shouldn't we be appointing them here too? But they're appointed from the district, so. But at the same time, we all get an update as a group.
Here's David.
Yeah, we can't say anything too much.
Do you want me to say something?
No, I
We
don't.
just, yeah, it happened.
We're working on it?
Yeah, we're still working on it. We really
We have
can't say
meetings
very much.
scheduled.
You have minutes in there which say absolutely nothing, but
Right.
But
It's a work in progress.
Move to approve them.
so Julie moved to approve
I'll
the
second.
bargaining committee minutes. Dick will second.
David says
Those
yes.
members of the bargaining committee who wish to vote on this, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And that's
Dean just
unanimous.
appointed himself,
He did.
Yeah,
a member of the bargaining committee.
welcome aboard.
Okay, so there's really no update at this point in time. It's still in process. I did notice you guys are taking some nice 3-hour meetings and stuff though.
3.
Well, we,
A total of 3, but the first hour is usually us, and then 2 hours for the teachers. And we
Okay.
did have to cancel our February meeting,
Yeah.
so we're a little bit behind.
February 5th, March 5th.
But there are no foreseeable problems or anything unusual cropping up. This team is very experienced and it's moving at its proper pace.
Good. Thank you. Is here we go. I can wait till later. Legislative update on the
Okay.
healthcare stuff. Okay,
all
so
right, you ready for goals?
now fun time.
Okay.
Presentation time.
So we have a presentation for you. I'm just gonna kind of introduce this and then turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent Skylar LaBombard and our Director of Student Support Services, Guillaume. So they're both here and have done tremendous work on preparing a presentation for you. As you know, this month at both the Meadowy and the Taconic and Green Board meeting, you heard updates on progress at the school level. And so Guillaume and Skylar have been analyzing and reviewing the data on the BRSU level. So what you're going to hear tonight is kind of more high-level system-wide information, and you'll see data disaggregated on a different level than what you see at the school level. So before I forget, want to really thank both Guillaume and Skylar for their work on this, and I will turn it over to you.
Cool. As Randy alluded to, we will be kind of trading off a little bit. We'll talk about some academic data at a high level, then we'll zoom into the subgroups. We'll start with math, then we'll go to reading, and we also have social emotional belonging type goal that we'll touch on very briefly at the end and talk about the next steps as an SU, what we're taking to deal with the school transitions and think about all those considerations of combining those groups. So without further ado, these are our two pretty much boilerplate goals from year to year. We're looking for an increase in the number of kids that are hitting their annual growth goals. We really focus on growth so that we include everybody and not just performance levels. And then that secondary goal, well, I shouldn't say secondary because that suggests that it's not as important as the first, but belonging and positive peer relationships has been big for us as we kind of embrace students of diverse backgrounds, and we'll look at some of those subgroups. But even more so, this goal will start to take the forefront as we combine students from different learning communities and they establish a new identity as a community. So moving forward, as you know, this is our fourth year with Reveal Math as our main mathematics curriculum. It's our third year of into reading with K-6 and into literature for grade 7 and 8. We have a aligned local assessment schedule this year. Less assessment, faster response. That's the kind of operation we're trying to move forward with. You know, anytime there's an assessment window open, I hear from the field that we're just testing kids too much. I remember a few years ago, I was tasked with doing some math around the number of minutes we spent testing. And I really thought about that and tried to shrink it down as much as possible and really make sure that we're using assessments that matter and give us action. And then with instruction, if you were at the TNG meeting, you heard some principals talk about building thinking classrooms. Yes.
So I was just curious, because, you know, a couple of years ago, you ended up adding up all the numbers we spent on assessment, and you kind of found it wasn't as
It's
bad as we
really-
thought it was.
It's really not.
It'd be interesting maybe to kind of be able to see how that tracks from year to year, you know, when doing the goals, just.
Yeah,
Because it also to give some ammo to board members when parents tell us we're testing too much. If we actually have some data on it, it could be useful.
yeah, it's a delicate subject with folks.
It's not worth getting into a big argument about.
Yeah, it's, I will say, we'll touch on absenteeism as well, and that kind of tends to lengthen assessment periods when kids are absent during an assessment window. That kind of stretches things out, right? And that makes it feel like we're assessing for longer periods of time than we actually are. So moving forward, we're looking at built-in data collection at the classroom level. You won't really get a lot of that here. As you know, we're using NextPath. You'll see some graphs from that when Guillaume starts to examine some subgroups. So that data is tracked, but it's not quite at the high level. We typically at the SU, we look at kind of our major local assessments. We will zoom in and out depending on if there's a trend or something, if we want to track it down to a smaller grain size. And then, you know, there I will share, we had an SU in-service day 2 Fridays ago, and we ran ed camp sessions where educators share their practice with each other, and it's always positively reviewed. People want more time to learn from their colleagues, and the action-based learning stuff that's going on at Meadowy was a big hit for a lot of people. So I expect to see that at some of our other schools soon. Okay, so jumping right into math, this is a graph that represents placement from winter to winter. So not typically people like to look at fall to winter, but we expect there to be growth. So that's not super helpful. So we choose point in time to point in time the previous year. Not a lot of action realistically, right? A couple of percentage points. I believe we're down a percentage in terms of early on and mid on grade. The biggest thing to look at here, the thing that strikes me when I look at it from like a data analyst perspective, right? It's just the number of students assessed. So we're losing kids. It's the enrollment thing is rearing its head again. So that, you know, we already 1,000 kids is a relatively okay end size. It makes doing the math easy, that's for sure. But over the years, we've just kind of steadily eroded student population. And then this is a graph that I believe I used at TNG just to kind of help people see what the national norm is, the national year to date, and then how we are performing compared to those two reference points. Okay, and you might look at it and say, okay, you know, 42% of kids on grade level, that doesn't feel great. It's also mid-year, so we typically see that number will increase by the end of the year. This is the quadrant chart with schools. You saw this at TNG as well. Each one of those represents a BRSU school. If you watch the Meadowy meeting, you would know that Meadowy is doing really well in math, and I can easily identify them as that dot. Okay, moving on. This I have not yet shared. This is a grade level performance on this quadrant chart. So in mathematics, we notice not only from an iReady perspective, again, it's if you think in terms of a bell curve, that's what you're looking at for your horizontal axis in terms of performance. That's what a distribution would look like. So we're right there, right? Anything to the right of the proverbial bell would be good. So grades 3, 4, and 5, we're seeing not only on this assessment, but also on local math assessments, that there have been, they're not growing at the same rate that we would expect. I've had several conversations with some math teachers. There's some speculation around the attention that we've paid to early literacy. And if you recall, 4 years ago when we introduced Reveal Math, we saw a really fast growth in year 1. We actually exceeded our goal. And that was before we introduced any early literacy focus. And then the following year came the literacy program, and then state legislation Act 139. So people started to pay really close attention to early literacy. So I speculate a little bit that might have come at the cost of some of the math stuff. So we're rectifying that. This is the first year that this kind of pattern has shown itself around grade 3, 4, and 5, transitional multiplicative understandings.
So how do our new curricula align with the possibility of sort of combining those two growth things? Because I understand conceptually that reading and math are very different, but
Yes.
also there's ways to educate people where reading and math are aligned and go hand in hand in the exact same lessons that our kids are engaging in.
Yeah, I mean, I believe one of the principals, one of the T&G principals talks about language as a barrier to mathematics. Like a lot of higher level curricular resources use really dense word problems and application problems. I mean, I remember back even when I was a teacher, sitting on committees and talking about real life contexts for kids in Vermont versus like, you know, some of these curriculum are used across the world. So there's just things trying to relate kids to things that they're familiar with is helpful in mathematics. Yeah, it's to me as a math, I was a middle school math teacher, thinking about like it aligns with just that multiplicative reasoning. And so what I get from a lot of our math teachers is they just need fact fluency.
You said that sometimes, just because of the pace of the year,
Yes.
subjects that are being tested haven't yet been covered. And so my concern is, since we have some control over iReady, can we make sure that key elements that demonstrate progress get covered in time to be adequately covered so kids can, if they have progressed, demonstrate it?
So in terms of iReady, right, it's a computer adaptive assessment. So it doesn't really allow us, each kid's path is different, right? So it really doesn't allow us to say we want to make sure we focus on number and operations versus geometry is the thing that one of the principals had mentioned. At the end of the year, that's when every math curricula in existence teaches geometry. And what that means is that falls out, there's not enough runway to get to it. So year over year, it's like geometry tends to be an area that isn't taught well, or just based on crunch time, right? And the fact that it's nice out. And after a winter like now, keeping kids' attention when it's nice out is tough. But yes, so we don't necessarily have the ability to curate specific standards on the iReady assessment itself, because theoretically it's built for each kid based on their previous performance year over year. Okay. So it'll prioritize the things that kids are weakest in to assess growth. Yes.
I was just honestly expecting to see, not expecting to see middle school quite where it is, considering all of our discussion of middle school.
Yes. So growth, I would say the fact that it's up in high growth does not surprise me, because our middle school did not perform well on last year's state assessment. So
But their performance and growth.
I know this year, I believe Principal Schulman had mentioned at the last T&G meeting, he did some work with goal setting with middle school kids and talking about the importance of this assessment, and really focusing and giving their all, and understanding that it is, you know, a one-off. Well, technically it's a 3-off, right? 3 times a year. He also informed the students that we data share with BBA as well. So when kids advance into high school, like, this matters. This is data that we have an agreement that we exchange. So it means something. And that's the first time one of our principals has really like met with students directly and spoke with them about that. So I would attribute some of this performance and growth just.
You opened it up to, we data share with BBA. Do they data share with us?
Yes.
They do?
Yep.
So we can track our kids' performance?
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we have a great relationship with them.
Good.
Back to just the fact fluency.
I didn't know that.
Is this, you know, I know like MetaWe, you highlighted MetaWe was doing really well this year with math. And I know that we had like fact fluency labs. Is that what you would attribute it to? And is that expanding outside of MetaWe?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, right, like, kids are really resilient and they'll learn if you pay attention to whatever it is you're trying to teach them, right? So I wouldn't attribute it to a specific, MetaWe uses a product called Math Facts Lab, and it's an online math fact fluency program. I believe it originated in Vermont, actually. And that has kind of caught on at some of our other schools as well. But I don't know that I would attribute to just that specific resource. I just know like when they meet as a leadership team, they are hyper focused on mathematics and they're talking about mathematics all of the time in a way that maybe our other schools hadn't really been focused on because of such the hyper focus on Act 139 and literacy. So, and I would say the same about the state. The state of Vermont has paid a lot of attention to early literacy, including the legislation, but there's a lot of resources out there to support educators around literacy. And there are talks now at the AOE about how do they make this move for mathematics as well. So it's almost like not quite in time, but it is a focus of the state coming up. I know that.
Well, it was, I don't know if everyone knows this, but we held a community engagement event last spring with our graduates of our school. We operate to 6th grade and it was open. I think we opened it to anyone who was 9 through 12. We did have a couple of middle schoolers who ended up coming and were invited to participate in the conversation, but a huge response from our students was that they struggled with math. When they left our school, they struggled with keeping up with math. It was like the highlight of the evening. One of two, hearing that math was a problem, and then so many of our students are really into science, so they really need math.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to me that we keep on, following their passion and the things that they're interested in. If it's science, if it's environmental science, then mathematics needs to be really strong for our kids so that they can achieve their dreams.
They've also done an exceptional job leaning into Bridges Intervention, the Tier 2 math program that we provided for them, and using it to the best of their abilities with all of the students who benefit from it. So I would say that's part of it too. I've been really impressed with our intervention team that way.
Thank you.
You're on.
Oh, I'm on. Ooh, I chimed in at just the right moment. So, as Skylar said, a huge part of what I've been doing this year is getting all of this into NextPath so that we can disaggregate the data and answer all of these questions for you that you all have. And so I'm going to just take you through a series of slides looking at the demographic groups that we now have reasonably well prepared in here to be able to discuss. It won't be everything that you might possibly want to ask about, but it's a good cross section. So we're going to start with math, looking at all the different demographic groups we have available. As you can see, girls and boys, their performance is very, very similar. So these charts, each slide is going to be set up the same way. This is, again, iReady data from the winter. And so the top is the relative placement. So it's essentially the same chart that Skylar just showed you, just turned sideways, because that's how NextPath displays it. So the green over on the right is fully a grade level or above. The light green is early on grade. The yellowy orange is 1 year below, 2 years below is the dark orange, and 3 or more is the red. So that those two graphs clearly are very comparable. And then down at the bottom, we have their percent progress towards annual typical growth. So I don't know if you remember from past presentations, but they measure, a kiddo who starts with this score at this grade level, we should expect to make this much growth in 1 year. And then they measure their percent progress towards that over the course of the year. So the first graph there is 0 to 20% of that expected growth. That's the lightest green. The next one is 20 to 40. The next one is 40 to 60, right where the cursor is there. So that is where you would, oh, that's not my cursor. That's like, how convenient though. That's where you would expect kids to be this year, halfway through. We're halfway through the year when they do this. And so you would expect kids to be halfway through their annual growth. And then anything above that, they're exceeding what you would expect, the typical growth, right? So we have 60 to 80% is the next section, 80 to 100% is the next section, and then the dark blue is kiddos who met their expected annual growth already by the January assessment.
That's really good.
Yes. The numbers on the side, the 51 and 53%, those are the kiddos who are on track to meet their typical growth, because that's what our BRSU goal is around. And you recall for math, it was 53%. So boys and girls both
Surprised to
basically
see
on
we have
track.
that many. We have 418 to 491 in girls and boys. Just surprised to see we have a lot more boys.
We had some classes with 1 girl
Wow.
or 2 girls and 9, 10 boys.
Who knows, Jim? Not gonna hazard a guess at that one. All right, next we have by race. So we have white students on top and students of color on the bottom. And you can see we are seeing some of the predictable disproportionality. We have been, as we work to rectify that, obviously we're not going to provide different instruction for students of different races, but we've been really ramping up our tier 2 and tier 3 instruction, trying to close those gaps across the board. And you can see here, those students are showing greater growth. So we are showing some progress towards closing that gap. And hopefully next winter, we'll see that show up top in that graph. This is a similar graph looking at socioeconomic status. You can see we're seeing predictable disproportionality, and unfortunately the growth differential is not as strong down there.
You said a moment ago
Yes.
in this discussion that kids do better when they're familiar with the issues that the question is getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So you said some questions really need to be framed in the experience of Vermonters. How much of the curriculum speaks to some of our minority population?
Oh, I couldn't hazard a guess at that. Would you want to?
No, I mean, in terms of like the percentage of curriculum that like has representation, I couldn't off the top of my head. When we reviewed the resource, like that was a critical element of review. We needed to make sure that there was like equitable representation. But yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, it's probably is that now a focus for people putting together curriculum
Yes.
where it used to
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
be probably, yeah.
And it did, the resources did pass the equity review that
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear anything anymore. It's been out for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
you can keep going.
Multilingual learners. So again, you see lower performance and higher growth. And it's interesting because this is math, and as Skylar said, a lot of it is language heavy. If students have Spanish as their first language, we are able to offer the math assessment in Spanish for them. We run into this interesting thing where many of our immigrant students didn't have strong math instruction before they came to us, so the Spanish doesn't necessarily help them that much. But the fact that we're seeing strong growth for them is wonderful. Then we broke it out by tiers of instruction. So tier 1 is our general education, right? Tier 2 is academic intervention, so extra support in reading or math. Tier 3 would be special education. These graphs start to get, this is where we are starting to see our point of growth in NextPath. So let me kind of talk you through this. The general education tier 1 graphs are there, they're solid, they're accurate. That's good data. The tier 2 academic intervention, because we're transitioning into this new system of tracking everybody in NextPath, for math, that actually represents about 90% of the kids who are receiving tier 2 math instruction for various bookkeeping reasons. I spot checked, and the numbers, percentage-wise, I don't believe having those other 9 kids in there would make a significant difference. That graph would look pretty much the same. If you look at tier 2 there, you see they are performing lower than tier 1, which you would expect. That's why they're receiving tier 2 instruction. And at the bottom, their growth is really, really strong. Tier 3, from a data perspective, gets a little trickier still, because one of the things that we uncovered just in pulling this together for you all tonight is that the way our systems, EdDoc and NextPath, tracks IEPs, it's not noted right up at the top, like on the cover information, if you will, whether a student is receiving math services or reading services or something else entirely. So that bottom line represents all of our students with IEPs. They may or may not be receiving math instruction as part of that IEP. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. So take that one with a big grain of salt, but I wanted to put it in there just for transparency.
One thing I mean, our goal is to have tier 2 kids and tier 3 kids moving into tier 1. Right?
Absolutely.
So, I don't know whether, again, the ends get small, whatever, but, I'd just be kind of curious about how we're doing.
Do we have that graph, that line graph? The graph that shows movement from the tiers over time with the colors and the lines?
It doesn't show from tier 3 to tier 2 to tier 1. It shows growth across an assessment.
Right, but okay, but it does show kids it shows by whether your
placement change or level
placement change.
yes.
Exactly. I think that would be
It'd just be,
useful for us to show,
again,
that it gets at the point of what he's talking about here. So it like shows if you've got kids that are 1 year below, over time, are they going up into being on grade level, or 2 years below, or if they're
that's huge
on,
success
and yeah,
in
we've got a
the
graph
system.
of that, which is a really good graph. It
It's
might
like
be good to pull
improved
that up if we
placement or
can.
something like that. That's what it's called in the system.
You sent it to me
Yeah.
for something, Guillaume.
I did. Would you like me to
It
pause
would-
and find it now
No,
or find it
No,
later?
but
Okay.
it's worth sending, maybe
For the
we can send
future.
it to board members,
Absolutely.
it's a pretty cool graph to show exactly what Jim is asking. What does that relative placement movement look like over time?
Oh, yeah, because then it's
For
not
different
confusing.
populations.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the broader view and the deep dive in mathematics. This is the content area, like I said, that was kind of the most compelling in terms of noticing something that 3, 4, 5 cluster of not necessarily poor performance, but just not as much in terms of high performance, high growth as the other spaces. So we're going to transition to reading, and I'll hit you again with the broader view, and then we'll dive into subgroups. 3 years over time. So you can see, again, I look at N size. We are kind of creeping up in terms of the number of students early on or mid above grade. If you look at the students assessed, you'll see a big drop off from 23-24 to 24-25. That's when we transitioned to using a MIRA as our primary literacy assessment for kindergarten. It went from 967 to 844. So we didn't lose that many kids.
That's a lot fewer students than we have in the math, isn't it?
Yes, because we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, say it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 23-24, we use iReady in kindergarten for reading.
Okay.
When Act 139 hit, we transitioned to kindergarten using a MIRA and not using iReady.
Okay.
So that explains the big drop off.
So it takes out 100 kindergartners plus the regular drop
yes.
that we saw for the overall population.
Okay.
Yep, and then so 24-25 is grades 1 through 8, 25-26 is grades 1 through 8. So those are the two that are most appropriate to compare to each other. Even with that, there's an erosion of 33 kids. So yeah, just the declining enrollment is tough.
When you say erosion, we're not talking about moving to a lower tier. We're
No.
talking about leaving
Well, like an exiting grade level, like once our eighth graders, we have bubbles that are really discernible when you look at our enrollment patterns. So if we have a larger grade go out, I recall that one year, the big drop off happened. We went from like 106 kindergarteners, and when they transitioned to first grade, only like 82 kindergarteners came in. So it's like we lose bubbles, and it really impacts us in terms of numbers.
Any reason why those
Birth
bubbles
patterns.
exist?
Patterns,
Birth
yeah.
patterns,
Yeah,
strictly.
housing probably.
Yeah, there's nothing concrete to explain the variability. That's been inherent in our system for a long, long time, where we have some classes that are just larger than other classes. And we feel the shifts because we're a relatively small system.
That was one of the biggest swings in like the 10 years of doing this type of work that I can recall. So that was one of the reasons that there was such a big drop off. In terms of performance against national norm and national year to date, we are continually performing better than those groups. This is 8.9 million students using the Ready Reading Assessment. Again, this represents, you saw this at TNG. This represents all of our schools. Each dot is a school. This is one that I'm not able to pick out who is who, but it's awesome that all 4 of them are in the top right quadrant, because that's where we want everyone to be. And then this is a grade level breakdown. So you'll notice again, middle school really stepping up in 6, 7, and 8.
Wow.
Yeah. Questions about broad stuff in terms of literacy data? This is a testament to people's investment in the programming and working with each other. They've been kind of saturated in the resource for a long enough time to really use it effectively and round off some of the sharp edges. So that's been awesome to see.
Ready? So reading, we'll see the same slides, and you'll see there's a very similar breakdown to what we saw in math. So no significant difference between the two genders in either placement or growth. By race, again, we do have some disproportionality in achievement, but our students of color are outgrowing our white students. Socioeconomic status, again, there is some decreased achievement, very similar growth. This one is interesting to me, though, that we have more students of low socioeconomic status who have met their year's growth already. So even though the green at the bottom is pretty similar, the dark blue is not. Multilingual learners, doesn't look as rosy for them for their growth, but that's to be expected because they're learning English and they're learning, this is measuring their learning to read English. So you would see slower growth here as compared to math. And again, with the tiers of instruction, a very similar story to last time, where the tier 2 students are outgrowing the tier 1 students because of their extra instruction, and the special education students, some of them are receiving reading instruction as part of their IEP, and some of them are not. And so we're going to work to get you more accurate data on that next time.
We also, I just want to make another observational comment that we talked about earlier today. The tier 2 N size for both math and reading, we are very confident that those numbers are not accurate. We have many more students receiving that tier 2 intervention. We're going to be looking into kind of why the information is not in NextPath, because all the plans, everything's supposed to be put in there, but it clearly today is not, because we have many more than 90 students receiving support.
We do.
We're going to be looking into that a little bit more, but just so you know, this only represents a certain population, and we don't even know what that number, what percentage of the overpopulation it is, but I know that we have many
Well,
more
in
than
math,
90
did you
kids.
say it was like 9 students or something different?
So I did look into that after we spoke earlier, and the issue arises, and there are 2 different places in NextPath where people have to track them. And so some people are hitting both, and some people are hitting one or the other because it's a new system, and so there's a growth curve there. So my best estimate for reading is this represents about 2/3 of our students who are receiving tier 2 reading instruction. And at a spot look at the other list for kids who are put in the other place and not this place that I pulled from, the graph looks pretty similar again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, But I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Absolutely.
Because it's not tracking for me that we have the number of staff we do with that number of kids.
Yep, and we need to get the
So-
real number.
So there's something that's not happening. So we'll spend more time on that. But this helps us to identify that, which is.
Is the
Good.
vendor helpful with that sort of thing?
I think it's more of a data
This
entry
is our entry.
issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have procedures for data entry.
Data in is only as good as.
Yeah, data out.
Data out's only as
Data in.
good as data in.
But I would
So
think, I would hope the vendor would be good if you say that, gee, somehow we're not getting all these kids. They'd be able to
Yeah.
figure out,
no, but we're not inputting the data.
It's our learning curve as a system.
Yeah.
but, okay.
Like they have no idea how many kids should be on.
I'm just
mixed
guessing, like,
plans.
we're probably, if we're having that problem, probably somebody else has had that
Yeah,
problem before
maybe.
too.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I think.
I can say we are doing better each month when I go in and check how many things are accurately entered in there. We're doing better every time.
Last one for you? Okay. So, super quick look at student belonging, and we can, we're here for more questions if you have them as well. So, as you know, we use DESA as the common assessment across our schools. We give it 3 times a year. It takes the form of a teacher survey for kindergarten through grade 5, and then a student survey 6 through 8. So students fill it out themselves online in grades 6 through 8. And if it's K to 5, we plan these assessment windows around report cards because we find that it helps teachers really think of the whole child, not only just academically, but also, how is the student's performing in terms of friendships and belonging, and it's observational as well. So this is a pretty healthy distribution of the categories. So the one on the left is need for instruction, so they likely see a school counselor. Typical is just, typical development, and then strength would be, maybe the child emerges as a social leader in their group. Again, there's great variance in this depending on class size for one and size as a whole. But this has maintained a level of consistency over the 3 or so years we've used DESA. And when you consult with the DESA folks themselves, like it's a healthy distribution, right? There's always going to be kids that need a little bit of social learning outside of what we normally provide the whole group.
I think I've just been curious about when, anytime you have sort of a survey-based system and you're giving it to people time and time again, then, is there a risk that they're just,
So the surveys are.
I know this question.
Yes. They have multiple forms for that very reason. So it's not the same thing over and over again. They basically, so the lowest level of DESA, and if a student flags, it then expands out to be like an additional 40 questions. But the different forms are like 8 statement questions or statement responses, where it's like, I've seen this child in the last 6 weeks, I've seen this child, help a friend in need. And then it's a scale score. So that is variable every time they do it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of our larger scale data point. And this isn't the only data point we collect. Most of them are done at the building level, community-based events, those types of things. There's lots of student surveys that happen that I don't know about, just for the school's internal use. And the one thing that I want to mention, because I know I've mentioned it the last couple of years, we've had this type of presentation looking at chronic absenteeism. And this isn't excused versus unexcused. We're not going to delve into that whole process. That's more of there's county guidelines around how to respond to that. This is just functionally butts in seats. Kids aren't there. Whether it's a planned family vacation during the school year, which we have an abundance of those, it's lost instructional time. Kids aren't in the classroom, teachers are teaching, kids come back, they missed something critical. Perhaps it was a mathematics skill around multiplicative reasoning that is causing everything else to happen for us. But we're pretty solid over the last few years. Around 20% of our kids miss more than 10% of the school year. This is year to date. So we're 115-ish days into the school year, probably. So you're looking at 11 to 12 absences already for any reason.
And that's, I think, right, I think that it's important to consider that, right? Like, since COVID, people's
families are much more willing to pull their kids out of school for a whole host of reasons. And to keep their children home. And really a lot of families are okay with that. So it's an interesting challenge for us. We're really trying to communicate with families when kids are going on a trip, taking a day off to go skiing, extending a long weekend, right? When you're talking about missing 18 days puts us at that, missing 18 days of school over the course of the school year puts us at that 10%. You can get there very quickly if you're taking a week vacation, somebody gets sick a couple times. We've had, 20 to 30% of our kids have been absent. We have this, January to February month where it's like everyone feels like is sick at some point in that time. And so we're really trying to communicate to families, letting them know, hey, we just want to let you know that your child's been absent this number of days. We're not talking about that as being unexcused absences or excused absences, but when your child is not here to learn, it really does affect their learning, right? The research on that is significant. When a child misses 10% of their instruction, there is a documented impact. When your child misses 20%, you're pretty much guaranteed that there's going to be an impact on their ability to learn and learn all the grade level content they need. But our data is not as bad as it is in other places, but it continues to be a challenge for us because we look at it as, right, we're talking about 21% of our kids. When you disperse that across schools, it can end up being a relatively small number, and if people are kind of justifying it, you don't feel like there's an issue in any one place, right? And it isn't a population of at-risk students necessarily who are, missing because of what we have historically thought of as chronic absenteeism. It's just very different. So we're trying to crack this nut the way places are across the country. I'm not satisfied with 21% of our kids being in that high risk category of attendance. But we're not making a ton of headway on this, and we haven't in the last few years.
The legislature has a bill in process on this. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have an opinion from good or bad. I appreciate and understand the efforts to address it. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that this is something that you can legislate into compliance.
Well, that's, the way they're presenting it is it's moving towards early intervention instead of punitive enforcement, which sounds good, but,
Right, but when you're.
HHB was
When I
sounding good
say
too,
to
and
you that the majority of them are not sort of that typical
Yeah.
chronic absenteeism,
the problem could be the parents more than the kids.
well, it's just their decision making, right? I understand that we're gonna be gone and missing a week of school because we're taking this trip or going skiing, or I'm pulling my kid out every Friday for this period of time to do these things. Those are choices that a lot of families are making. And in a K-8 system, if the absence gets documented as unexcused, it doesn't carry any weight for them at a K-8 level, except that it says unexcused, but there's no meaning to that. And these aren't the kinds of situations their parents are communicating, those families are communicating. We know they're gone. We're not going to move forward with truancy. It's not a truancy thing. So it's just really not simple. It's really, really not simple. And for those families or those students who really are chronically absent, who are struggling to be in school, who are missing school, and we're not communicating well with families, we have systems in place, and we work on building relationships, making sure that the kids know that we miss them,
that when they're here, they are missed, and there's a loss for them and for the community. I think we've got really good practices in place around that, but anyway.
I think one of our greatest leverage points is the creation of these new school communities and having it be something exciting and great so that, kids want to be in school instead of, it's hard. But, as a kid, if your parents like, we're going to go on vacation in the middle of, November, like what kind of kid is not like, okay. But with I think the new school cultures, it's exciting. The opportunity to be part of a new community, different social groups. Like I hope kids view that as a reason to want to be in school. So,
It's not gonna matter if their parents want to go on vacation during the more affordable vacation block.
Exactly.
I think it's more about educating families.
Yeah.
Right. And we do.
Yeah.
We do try. But to your point, people are like, we just found a great deal and it's super expensive to travel with a family of 3, 4, 5. And
we're getting
we're
something
weighing-
out of this.
That's
that-
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right. We feel like the benefit for our kids right now is worth it, right? Like you can't argue with that. And they're not in school, right?
So a couple of identified next steps. Guillaume and I are already forecasting the new data sets, putting those together for the new communities that are coming together in terms of Dorset, Sunderland, and Courier folks. So we're already started kind of looking at continuous improvement and what our initial kind of baseline data will look like when we combine them instead of viewing them as separate schools. I know that there has been a will of some of our board members, and rightfully so, talking about extension and acceleration. We provide a lot of early detection services for kids who need some remediation, but how do we serve our kids that should be extended and accelerated? So we're actively working on articulating a place and some process for that to happen.
Skylar, can I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
So I got an email today about like a survey about students for next year. Is that what I didn't like click into it and see what the questions were yet, but is that or is this, I'm just totally throwing you off here?
No, it's totally fine. I can understand kind of the serendipitous nature of that, but no, that is more just help the new community know your student for consideration, and again, the new kind of social groups coming together.
Yeah. We
Okay,
sent
perfect. So
surveys
sorry to
out,
interrupt.
Yeah, we just sent surveys out, Kelsey, so that families had an opportunity to, share about their own children as we're starting to make class assignments. So it's something that we wanted to provide so that, the kids, families from all the communities have the opportunity to provide similar input. So it's just timing.
Yeah. So as Guillaume had identified, we don't currently have a way in our data system to identify what content area a student's IEP might be focused on. So being able to differentiate those folks into, it'll help us just refine our data practices, knowing what IEPs are written for in terms of content area. And then a lot of the work that we've done, a lot of the growth that we've seen is a result of our interventionists really getting aligned and identifying resources that serve them well. We are looking forward to continuing that into Tier 3, our special ed department starting some of this work to make sure that they're aligned as well. And then there's also a new curricular resource for school counselors, particularly when these communities come together and we create kind of the Equinox Valley Middle School, and then the 2 elementary schools as well. So really thinking about the social groups of students coming together. Honestly, I'm thinking about the social nature of teaching and how some teachers who have never had a colleague teach the same grade level will now have somebody on the other side of the wall doing the same thing that they're doing. And that opportunity and breaking down some of the protectionist practices where this is all I've ever known, right? So I think about the adults and the kids, but it's a really exciting opportunity and we're looking forward to it. Yeah.
Any
Thank you.
questions for Guillaume or Skylar? Any conversation amongst board members?
I just really like that very last perspective that you shared and thinking about the social nature of teaching. I think a lot of people don't think that way. It's really refreshing to hear.
Guys, I love this stuff. You know, that's like, and, you know, as always, I, you know, hope that we, you know, this is all on tape, on
Yes,
tape,
and we
yeah.
will share it with
We'll share
with
with
the
everybody
boards.
else.
I just put a note here on my agenda to Celeste, share it with the TNG and Meadowy. Let them know that the presentation begins at approximately minute 16. That's what my note says, so.
My, you know, from, you know, I was saying to Randy the other day that, you know, this is, you know, all our other boards, you know, it's always so packed trying to get stuff into it. It's difficult to find time. One of the beauties of the BRSU board is we have a little more flexibility. And so, you know, I want to continue doing this sort of, you know, just giving board members the opportunity to actually understand what they're overseeing. It's, you know, kind of
Hard to do the job when you don't know what's going on in the system, so.
really appreciate it. You guys, great job.
Yeah, terrific job, thank you.
Okay, governance process. Sue stuff,
Two stuff. It's the same thing you see every year.
the audit, which.
Oh, well, the audit, yeah, I guess that's the same.
The
thing
audit
every year,
first.
too.
Yeah, 'cause
It's
that-
equally as laudatory of just how very good you are
yeah, the, you
and
know,
your staff and the
Yeah,
other people. that-
yeah, it's them really when it comes to the audit.
but it is but, you know, being a finance geek and, you know, accounting was one of my majors at school.
Ooh, God, oh.
But,
Don't think about that, Jim.
Yeah, I know. That's really opposite.
no, you know, the audit reports, they're great to see. Everything is
They're all tight, excellent,
golden.
wrapped up. Yep.
We've got good systems and, you know, as Sue and I have been talking about recently, I feel like in some ways we don't necessarily always spend a lot of time on it and, but I do think it's really important that you as an SU board understand how complicated it is to be running 4 businesses out of our office and to have the level of clean audits that we do in the way that we do. It is not easy to keep things straight, to make sure things are accounted for in the ways that are required by the auditors and keeping everything in exactly the budget that it's supposed to be. So I just want to take a moment to just communicate to you all that Sue's work is exemplary and that it is unusual and that it is difficult. So it's important that you recognize that because, you know, it's
And I think-
Don't say it, Randy.
You know, on that, I think it's, you know, probably everybody sees the annual financial management, you know, questionnaire, and everybody goes, yeah, okay, you know, put it aside, but you actually, if you take 10 minutes and go through, and because it's, you know, I'm a finance geek, so, you know, I go through it and I look at all these questions, you know, they're rational questions as to controls that are in
Basic
place.
internal controls, yeah.
And it's very enlightening because if you take enough time to go through, it's kind of like going through and saying, wow, okay, yeah, we have to do all these things right. It's an awful lot to get right.
right. And you have policies, right, on your policy governance policies around financial management. And we do report on it, but this is the time of the year where you really get the breakdown. So when we say we provide this with you, for you, you're having the opportunity to see those checks and balances that are part of our system. And we do need you to approve the financial management questionnaire tonight at the meeting. So
I move the approval of financial questionnaire.
I'll second.
Second from Julie. Any further discussion?
Good job.
All in favor? Say aye.
Hi.
Bye.
Any opposed?
nice little segue.
Any abstentions? No. Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I guess,
Now it's on to you.
I'd like to
Oh,
jump in and say something. Do I sound too loud or soft or
No,
what?
No, you're good.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'd like to say something because we always praise Sue about the work that she does, but there's an aspect of having that level of expertise supporting us in everything that we do. There's a level of confidence that all of us as board members who are aware of how solid our fiscal fiscal activity is. We can talk to people publicly, we can negotiate contracts, we can do all kinds of things, and nobody ever questions our numbers, our ability to produce, to pay at certain levels, to perform on a financial level. So our fiscal responsibility is something that the public takes very seriously, I think. If we ever had any kind of hint of malfeasance or anything like that, we would, I think, would be very hard to get budgets passed. So having that, we kind of take it for granted that we have this reliability holding us up so that we can do other things and not worry about the fundamental foundation of having the money well accounted for and well tracked. So I think that's where the praise really should be focused, is that Sue, with your work, you really allow us to do our jobs to the best of our abilities. We have no excuses for poor performance because you hold us up. So it's all on us to do the other stuff well. So thank you for that.
Thank you, David.
I agree.
Yep. Not too shabby. All right. Legislative update. Don't want to go through the whole thing, but things continue to shift. The legislative,
It's freaky and how fast stuff moves on this stuff.
because the legislative, yeah, we're at slow, fast and slow.
At the same time.
The legislative update, to get it in time for the first meetings. Then I've already sent out an update on that, and of course, there have been several updates since then that, you can't give updates every 3 days or else people would go insane. But, where we are right now does appear to be, it does look very much like, the Conlin map is done. In House Ed, we had, the Taylor proposal that came up that was, it was kind of fun to see. In this legislative update said, we gave our own idea and we haven't seen any progress. And then several days later, the Taylor proposal came out, which had eerie similarities to our proposal. And it got discussed pretty well for one day. I do have to say that I was pleased. I watched the session. I know some others watched the session where the House Education Committee discussed it. And there were the people that you knew were going to come out trying to shoot arrows at it. They had a really hard time.
Mm-hmm.
But still, Chair Conlon the next day came out and said, hey, I've got an idea. Let's just go and pretend that the entire solution is CSAs, which are the BOCES sort of entities for the cooperative education service areas or whatever. And, he presented it as essentially the big discussion on Taylor the day before they finished and said, well, this needs to be developed some more. Came in the next session and pretended like it never happened and said, we'll use CSAs because that was a part of the task force recommendation and a good idea, using cooperative entities to help people work together. But I think the sales spiel from Conlon was that we'll do these CSAs that can help with stuff like, having special ed all together and financial management all together across multiple districts. And then we'll give them another job, which is to encourage consolidation amongst their districts.
Like that was going to accomplish absolutely anything.
Right.
That's all we've been missing, Jim, is just a little encouragement.
But the funny thing is that the House Education Committee, including the people who had been, there was definitely, Conlon was right. He did not have the votes for anything, any one thing. And he brought this up, and I think they felt the time pressure, and they all said, yeah, let's go with this. So they're pushing very hard on that. The Senate Education Committee was taking testimony last week, and they take a little bit more tomorrow, basically on Seth's new map. He did a redo of the map, and the redo, from our perspective, if you remember the first map that came out, it had us together with Southwestern Vermont SU, and then pulling in towns from 3 other SUs to make this big blob. He split that apart and he changed the map in a lot of places. In the end, his current map would have the BRSU adding Wells Springs, and so Wells and Middletown Springs. Then it would have also picking up the River Valley School District or whatever, which is Dover and Wardsboro. And then also Stratton, because it makes sense. Stratton, Wells, and Middletown Springs, we've had discussions with. Okay, those kind of make some sense. Wardsboro and Dover, that was really because they're sending towns to Burton. And they're part of a different SU right now. But then he threw out another town that is really hard to figure, Somerset, which is the town of Somerset has, according to Agency of Education records, has 1 student. and they're not from any of the other SUs. So I think it was just sort of a mistake that they threw that in there. But that's the current proposal. So it's a map that is not outrageous from our perspective. One of the key things is when Seth initially presented, so this seems to have some legs, this map. One thing that when Seth originally proposed it, he also proposed, interestingly, they never put any language into build sort of language, but he gave this, 2.5 page sort of summary of how this would work. And he's been taking testimony, and people clearly that are giving testimony did read what he originally said that it should do, because one of the things it would do is, so here was the new map. The first map was absolutely ugly. It would have been horrible. This new map is more rational, but still, it's a map that would say that then here's what the map should look like. You guys should work on doing some mergers and amongst your districts to create this map. And if by the end of year 2 you haven't done it, then the Agency of Education is going to come in and make you do it. So it's essentially forced mergers over 3 years. And I read 10 different letters of people giving testimony on this. They were kind of giving this and the Conlon stuff. And out of those 10 letters, I don't think any of them really was supporting the map. So there are issues that people have a lot of different places around the state. And interesting issues, because some of them are this map doesn't accomplish anything. It's just kind of keeping things the way they already are. It's not going to save anything. It's not going to fix anything. There were people who are concerned about choice. There was one particular town that I found it, they actually used the word insulting in there, because we're currently structured with these set of towns, and you're throwing us over these other towns and taking away the way we operate now. So there are a lot of people who are going to push back on some elements of it. And right now, Senate Ed, though, they've scheduled on Thursday to have a session on putting together language for this proposal. So presumably they're going to put together a form of bill that, because right now it's just a map with a list of towns. This will, turn it into, this is how it's supposed to work. Now, Jeff Wilson is our ex-legislator, so he's our pro, and he's been helping us kind of try to figure out how this is going to work. It sounds likely that the House will come together with their CISA model. Senate will come up with something that's based upon Seth's map. Then they go to conference committee and duke it out.
as to what's going to actually happen, which means it's really hard to figure
Right.
what it's going to look like. So we don't really have any predictive power at this point. But we're going to try to stay engaged and try to, kind of bat at it at the edges to see if we can have any positive impact, I think. If people have ideas, want to, more questions, ask them. I was going to run through a couple other things that are in the legislature, but I'll shut up for a minute.
What's going on in the Ways and Means committees of each house with respect to the quote foundation formula?
The foundation formula there, honestly, I think I know where it stands, but I can't guarantee. The foundation formula, I think there is a recognition, people are saying that it needs a lot of work. One thing that did happen is in this session, they hired through the Joint Fiscal Office, they hired external consultants to look at the foundation formula that was put together last time and do an analysis and make comments and provide input. That analysis is going to be ready sometime later this year. So it's not going to be in the very near term. I can guarantee you that
Isn't it likely after the session closed?
Yeah. Probably not until, until end of summer. So we'll see something on that. So, some people have presented it as, one of the real problems you have here is, even if you ended up saying that, okay, we do something that'll lead us towards the foundation formula in the future, you're relying on some future legislature to get it right on the foundation formula. Okay. We have some real concerns with that. I think we're going to be engaged on that discussion to the extent we can. The other thing that Ways and Means is actually doing is, in order to accomplish something from a spending perspective, at the beginning of the session, Senator Baruth put out a spending cap proposal that has morphed into its S220. It's morphed from a straight spending cap into a lowering of the excess spending threshold. So, essentially the point at which any school district, gets a penalty for having too high of a spending increase. For all of our districts, that would, currently we have had a excess spending threshold at 118%, being the measure.
Yeah, we're not there.
And they're talking about bringing it down to 112%. We're still fine. All of our districts are fine, with 112 too, so it wouldn't impact us. But there are some districts, and honestly, it wouldn't, they did an estimate of how much of an impact it would have across the state. There are some districts that are upset because they're going to get a bigger penalty. At the same time, it doesn't really make that much of a difference statewide. It's not going to change that spending that much.
And I don't know that it will have an impact, the impact that they want, which is to lower spending in order to avoid it.
Right.
And, there are districts that just don't have a choice. They feel
Right.
like this is what we have to do.
But there are some that have clearly, they're close to that the old 118, and they figured out a way to stay under it.
Yeah.
So you bring it down to 112, they may still try to lower it, but as you say, there are some that are
just going to have
No,
to do it.
it's not
They're
even
gonna-
close,
They're going
so.
to put it to their voters, right?
Where the yield bill, important bill is the yield bill now is,
Right.
it's in process. And, where they are in the VSA and VSBA just gave testimony today, or written testimony on that, where the, whoever it is, it's the Ways and Means or Finance or whoever, where they're coming down now is originally the governor had proposed taking like $120 million or something and using it this year to buy down the tax rate. We all know that when you use money to buy down the tax rate, then you have a problem the next year. Where they're coming out right now is talking about using $75 million this year. Now, education spending across the state, the aggregate looks like it's coming in at a 4.2% increase this year across the entire state. So it's spending up 4.2%. And what they're talking about is using $75 million
to keep the tax rate increase on an average down to 7%. So they do 75 million this year and then leave over 52 million to throw in next year. So they're kind of trying to wean themselves off of that. That's where they are today. That has a tendency to float around. And there are always the important things of allocations where they figure how much are you going to get homestead versus non-homestead, things like that. I also wanted to point out, we'd asked everybody at VSBA and I had asked everybody, and there was the Hedrick amendment to that non-compete thing that would have allowed teachers to walk on their contracts. That did ultimately, the bill that went with H205 just got put aside completely for this year. Likely to come back next year, but I'll tell you, it's that together with the healthcare negotiation bill, H842, was a great example of the NEA still is the big dog up in Montpelier. The healthcare negotiations, that was Sandy Pincinel, one of our local legislators' bill, made all the sense. We sent letters, VSA, VSBA, everything, pushed like crazy. We had the VSBA hired outside lobbyists to try to push this along. Never got out of committee. Basically, because NEA said, this is not necessary. We don't really, we don't really like this. Now, this in a year where everybody's screaming about healthcare costs, and our healthcare costs in schools are going up by outrageous amounts. And that's what this is all targeted at. And we couldn't even get that off the ground. So they are going to try to keep those ideas, try to get, one or two of them into some miscellaneous ed bill or something like that. But it's shocking to me that, that is the most logical thing in the world. And I just say, I'm going to try to shame some of our legislators into recognizing that, to do nothing on that bill was really beyond the pale. That's where I am. Okay. Questions, thoughts, input? Jim, you talk too much.
Thank you, Jim.
I think at our annual meeting, we were told there was chaos, and it doesn't sound like much has changed.
No, but they've settled on, the bizarre thing is, this is an issue that really needs good attention. And what we're saying is the political process can absolutely avoid that happening. And the political process at this point is they'll come out with something, but honestly, my own view on it is a little jaded, but it's they've been trying major changes in education legislation. They've tried like every 5 years. I've been on school boards now for like 18 years, but every 5 years they come out with the thing that's going to fix it. And by the time it gets to be law, it doesn't fix anything. And that's exactly what they're probably doing in this case. I think, ultimately though, what has a chance to really make the biggest difference ultimately is the foundation formula. So we shall see. But everybody's afraid to make changes that make sense.
You're very correct. If they took healthcare out of the mix for education spending, I can guarantee you that they could put it all in fixing the healthcare system. And in the process, leave a little bit more money for individual kids and what they need.
Well, I forgot to mention one thing on the healthcare. One possible route on the healthcare is there's another bill, S190, that they're calling for another study. This study is to look at bringing together teacher, state employee, and municipal employee healthcare all under one umbrella.
that doesn't necessarily mean it would change the negotiation process or anything, but if you put them all under one umbrella, then you have a bigger pool and you have a better chance of maybe, because what we're talking about is sort of trying to equalize things between teachers, state employees, and, the teachers would be giving something up and we'd have to make up for that in their compensation. But, we ultimately, if we could, everybody's going up, but if you've got, teacher, the average teacher healthcare plan, family plan costing $46,000 to the district in next year, and the state employees plan costs less than 25,000. Then it's just, there's such a gap there that, and we've got, we all know that the rate of growth has been double digits, for most. So if you got $46,000 growing at 12%, God, it gets to be real money at some point,
Yeah, it is real money, for sure.
So it's heading towards the point where healthcare is going to be, could be half of compensation. So
We're at that for people in many places.
yeah.
Exceeds compensation in some places.
So that's where we are. Any other, sorry, but questions, thoughts, or feel free to shoot me. If you read some of the stuff, shoot me an email if you've got questions. Anybody feel free. We're trying to track this. I've got to give tons of credit to, we've continued to have the chairs of districts and all be involved really on a weekly basis, having calls to kind of go through this stuff and figure out where we are and what we need to know. So that's Randy and the chairs. Dick has been a part of that. David, we have, now and Melanie was, now we have Jeff Wilson and Ben Freeman coming into that crew. It's interesting, but it takes a lot of work, and I'll tell you, two of our most productive out of that crew over the past year have been Ms. Julie Mock and Mr. Dean Giannotti, who have done fabulous work on them, along with our superintendent.
We'd have nothing to do, Jim, if it wasn't for your excellent summaries. I'm just saying, everything I've ever written was just something I ripped off from you. So
actually, Dean has a lot of good. People quote Dean a lot.
Very practical.
Okay, so we move on. Reflection on norms. Take a quick look. I think we're hanging in there.
It's 8 o'clock.
I think we're doing okay. We're under our 2 hours. Public comments. Do we have any public? Any comment? Doesn't look like it. So we're going to move on to, we have an executive session, so the idea is to go into executive session. We're discussing something on a contract. We'll come out. We won't really, we'll need to take minor action, and then we'll head towards adjournment.
So I make a motion to find that premature general public knowledge regarding an employee contract clearly places the board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses the contract in public.
Is there a second on that? By Dick. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any noes, any abstentions? No. Okay, second motion.
I make motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing an employee contract under Title I, subsection 313A1.
Second? Second, Dick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we're gonna, that was Dick, was the second. What's that?
You want to stop recording and stop transcribing.
Yep, that we have
We're asking
to ask Randy to come.
Yes. Well,
Part of the
Randy,
motion.
yes, well, that's,
Still,
the board and we're gonna have Randy be a part of the session. Yes.
My motion said with
Yes.
Yeah, of course. you do.
All right, Keegan, can we ask you to leave, so we can go into executive session? Am I a host?
Okay, board members, I'm
no,
gonna,
Stop, please, just, I'm gonna.
Are we
I'm
going
gonna
to a
remove
different?
Keegan, I'm just gonna remove him.
what I'm just telling people, I'm going to send you an email.